course, to follow that up, we got the one and only Kelly coming in here.
Which, by the way, I want to go on record as saying that we did not want Kelly on this song. Because I don't think he was an official member, or I don't know what it was at the time, but we were writing for different people. And I sent this song to Kelly and said, don't play on it. And then he sent us back this solo, and then Cory and I were like, fuck! It's so good! Yeah. We gotta put it back on. And then, of course, we got bored one day with Siobhan, and she decided to harmonize it, because one thing we also learned, especially in tracking this song, is no matter how good of a guitarist you are, you're still not as good as the greatest violinist. Because they're enforced that they can do stuff, and they're not confined to frets, although I'm sure Bumblefoot has something to say about that.
Right.
The term is triumphant.
Yes.
Literally, Kelly writes triumphant stuff, and I remember getting that, and so that may be, I'm going to say this a lot, that may be my favorite Ollie solo, because it has a little bit of my favorite everything. It's got like a little bit of that Nuno, that the Boston, that's...
Ollie solo?
That's not Ollie, that's Nuno. Kelly.
You just said Ollie, yeah.
Did I?
Yes.
Kelly! Kelly solo! Kelly solo is so tasteful. And again, you know, so one day, Siobhan came a bunch of times to Boston, and, you know, we'd get stuff done. Like, okay, we got what we needed done. Now what do we do? And I was like, okay, let's break down these guitar solos. And in real time, this crazy musical scientist that is Siobhan Cronin sat there and deconstructed Kelly and Angel Vivaldi, who you will hear later in this song, was like, I'm going to write perfect harmony, so maybe we should just solo those out.
We'll isolate those.
Yeah, because I think she did this on an electric violin. So
yeah,
you
so
have
this section here is I'll play them both together, then I'll solo the electric violin to hear what she's doing.
So yeah, it's kind of cool because it does sound different than an electric guitar, but it has a weird thing to it. His overtones, and the thing is, you listen to it, it's not so saturated at all. Yeah. Like he just gets it so perfect that it's technician. Like 5 minutes, and was like, okay, oh wait, can you play it a little bit slow? Can you go back? Yeah. And she would just figure out perfect harmonies to these certain parts. And
yeah, it's a unique texture, and I think it works to give it, like the guitar, a little bit of like fatness.
It's an electric violin through a Kemper, which I don't. I'm sure someone's done it, but I haven't heard it a lot on records. And we actually did a cover of Bark at the Moon, and she played all electric violin, and people kept going, where are the violins? Yeah. And it's like, you're hearing them. They just don't sound like what you think of as a violin.
Yeah. But we continue on here. We got more of Kelly's. Is this Kelly here still? Who is this?
No, it's Richard.
Oh yeah, Richard. Yeah. Before we get to the violin madness, once again, a shout out to Richard Shaw. That solo is just
bumps.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to play like Richard, got make sure you go grab his book.
So I've actually said this, and I will say this again. Richard, if I was going to describe him, I have to say that he's like if David Gilmour decided he wanted to play as crazy as Yngwie. Because he has this, like the thing about Gilmour is that like he can play 7 minutes of Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, and he's just like, every harmonic, every note is just perfect. Richard has that same, again, I say the word triumphant. Like, so Kelly has set the tone where he's like, I'm going to make it triumphant. And Richard just stays right in that lane of epic. Again, for our friend Ollie. So again, it's one of those things, we were all really moved and in like a mode when we did this, like mentally. But like, when we had this part of the song, we created this section, our management called us and like, well, who are you going to have play over it? This is like, it's our manager's favorite song, right? And he's like, well, who are we going to have play over it? And I know that Cory, myself, and Siobhan all separately, and then together we're like, Richard. We want Richard. Because, you know, we had met him. He did Premeditated Destruction on Chapter 1. We talked to him on our podcast 2020, which you guys should go check out because that dude's fucking cool and you can learn something from him. And he has an English accent, so he's very pleasant to listen to. But the skill that he has to come in here and be able to play such wonderful notes over just strings. And the funny part is we told him to play longer and he was like, the song doesn't need it.
Right, yeah. And I think, if I'm remembering right, this was the second track he did for us, right? This was before Take Another Piece.
Yeah, he did Premeditated Destruction, then this.
Prior to this track, he had done Premeditated, which is that crazy 13/8 part. So like we abused him on the first solo we gave him, made him work for it. So we felt like he earned, you know, a nice spot on this one where he could actually have a little space and be a little more of a blank canvas for him to work on, which he excels at as far as finding those melodies and putting them together.
The concern was with, again, we got an old guy who doesn't really listen to this kind of stuff that like, you know, hey, should we do this, should we do that? And he's like, well, let's make it more symphonic. Who's not going to ruin it with the notes? You know, jokingly. And we're just like, Richard. And I remember we sent this to him and he just said, this is the best thing he's ever heard from us. Thank you, Richard. You made the best thing you ever heard from us.
Yeah, killed it. And then after Richard, we were speaking earlier about, you know, we had this string arrangement that was behind a lot of other instruments that we just thought, there's like no way we can't feature it. So that's what you get right here, which is one of my favorite parts.
It already broke down to the strings here, but this is when we were just like, nope, it's going straight strings because I think we have another mix. Siobhan and I used to get together. A lot of the times we didn't know the arrangements of the song. So we'd go over a thematic part of the song and we record like 16 measures. And I'd go, do layer 1, do layer 2, do layer 3, do layer 4. And I remember that we did like 50 layers. And she's like, is this enough? And I soloed it the first time and it was that. And I literally like, I think I called Cory. I'm like,
You didn't have to call me because I was there.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember this very vividly because this was a full day of tracking, and it was you and I with Siobhan in the other room. You know, she's in the other room, so she can only hear us through talkback. So she would play, you know, we did the bass layers, which just sound beautiful over the piano, and it was great. And then she'd stop. She wouldn't be able to hear us. Ben and I would be like, what if? And then we would hit the button, and Ben would scream a melody into her, or I would
be like, do it to a song, though. Do that, because every once in a while you hear it go,
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, do that again.
Some of those runs, you know, we're like, all right, let's arpeggiate that, you know, that thing there. And then she would be like, guys, what if I did that arpeggio, but, you know, 16th notes? And like, what if I did this? And then she, you know, so it
hops. So like, if you listen to it, like, it's basically, she's figured out how to create all the sonic bandwidth you could possibly have with as many notes as you possibly could have that are synergistic. It's basically like a musical masterclass. Again, like if you were to do a thesis for your PhD in music theory, this would be Siobhan's.
Yeah. So it was a ton of fun.
Courtesy of Cory and I telling her what to do.
Guiding. She doesn't need to be told what to do necessarily on stacking these things, but it was a lot of fun to just kind of shout out ideas. And we ended up with dozens and dozens of tracks that we then took and kind of fit throughout the song. So you'll hear other elements come in later on, which you can kind of just imagine each one of those being screamed at the top of our
lungs.
Well,
it's kind of like an EDM beat. So like this song we actually did like an EDM beat. So like if we have a DJ who goes, okay, here's synth 1, synth 2, 808, and then they have a part where it slowly builds up to it, and then you do a drop. This is our like Skrillex drop into what Siobhan did. And again, like we made 16 measures and then kind of cut it up and put it across. And it's the same thing as, like, again, if you're composing an EDM song on a computer and you're going, oh, well, this is where it's supposed to have more of that. We're just like, put it all together. And that's what it sounded like. And I mean, again, it was one of those moments where we were just like, and she comes in, and this is a typical Siobhan thing. Is it good? Do you need me to do anything else? No, you can go home now. We're good. I think we got it.
So we'll take one more listen through that section there, and then you get to hear Mr. Angel Vivaldi come in with one of the most triumphant, I feel like it's the only word you can use for this.
Well, and again, Angel is another asshole because he did the same thing that Kelly did. So this is the song that shouldn't have happened. The only person that was invited to play on this song was Richard, okay? And he's not a dick. That's my father, Dick Goodman. That said, Kelly and Angel, I sent them to this because, like, you know, we're little girls. We're like, oh, I want to show you something I did. Oh, you did Mercurian Summer? I did Acceptance. And Angel's usually like, that's cool. And then he's like, oh no, that one I really felt it. And he sent me a solo, and again, us a solo, and we put it in, and it was one of those moments where it's like, you dick.
Yeah. Because
we had to do it. We had no choice but to use it.
Yeah, it's so good.
That one glissando, is that what you call it, glissando?
That's descending arpeggios, or scale. I don't even know.
I mean,
this was
it's almost so fast that I'd call it a glissando, but
the glissando would just be a slide. This is
so clean.
This is all intentional here.
Yeah, listen to how clean it is. She's so freaking clean.
What a dick.
That's like some Itzhak Perlman shit, dude. Like, I don't think people understand that, like, the ability to bow like that is like Heifetz. And if you don't know who he is, all I can do is Cory's timpani programming as always. Did we have Paul play drums for this? I think we had him play a bunch of snare drums, didn't we?
Yeah, so we'll go through the production, but I want to make sure we get.
Yeah, let's go to do the Angel thing first, and then we'll deconstruct this because we're so excited. This song's exciting.